I'll just note to anyone online, we're waiting to convene just for a moment for Vice Chair Ray, and we should be starting shortly. All right, well, being 3 after, we will see Vice Chair Ray joining us shortly. But at this time, I'll call to order the Board Appointments Committee for February the 9th. With a quorum present, brings us to item 2 of our agenda is approval of the minutes. I'll entertain a motion for approval of item 2023-5603, approval of the minutes from our January 25th meeting.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second that.
I appreciate that, gentlemen, since I'm not supposed to make motions. So motion made and seconded. Any discussion on approval of our minutes from the 25th? All right, and seeing none, all those in favor of approval of the minutes say aye. Aye. And any opposed? Great, thank you. Those minutes are approved. We're going to move to public comment. It's an opportunity for members of the public to address the Board Appointments Committee. You have up to 3 minutes to speak. You provide your name and where you live. Do we have any members of the public who wish to address the committee? Seeing none in chambers. Dina, do we have anyone present online?
We do not, Chair.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so I will close public comment and bring us into our scheduled interview section. So first on our agenda, we have our Older Adult Services Board. So this is a body empowered with helping to inform services for seniors in the county, meeting each Wednesday, or the second Wednesday of each month, rather, at 3:30 at the HCS building. We have 2 vacancies on this body. One is a general sector. We have 2 sectors for those vacancies. One is general sector. We have 2 applications for that, including one incumbent and one new person. And those will be scheduled for interview at a later time. And then we also have the nutritionist sector, and we have 1 application for that, which is Mr. Richard Klein, who is here with us in chambers. Mr. Klein, if you would like, your preference, you can either stand at the podium or you can have a seat with us, whichever you'd like. And then you have a button, Lindy will show you. Excellent, thank you. Okay, so what we will do here, Mr. Klein, we have a number of interviews that we're going to go through today. So I encourage you, all the committee members have had an opportunity to see your application. So I encourage you to feel like you've answered the questions fully, but if you can be concise, we would also appreciate that. So I'm Commissioner Strebs. I represent District 2 and will serve as a chair for our meeting today. Do we have any other questions before we start, commissioners? Okay, all right, well, I'm going to jump into the first question, all right? So Mr. Klein, what do you know about this advisory board and why are you interested in serving on it?
I want to thank you for having me today and for your consideration of my application. What I know about it is it is an advisory committee to the Area Agency on Aging in the county. They focus on advocacy, the AAA's annual implementation plan, multi-year plans, the community needs assessment and quality improvement initiatives. And if that sounds familiar, I pulled it right from the website. So you wanted me to be concise, but I'm familiar with a lot of that territory in my experience and what I'm currently doing as the CEO of Milestone Senior Services, which was formerly Senior Services of Southwest Michigan. So probably should have led with that, but you have my application. So
Appreciate you doing your research as well, right? Thank you so much. Our second question we'll take to Vice Chair Ray.
okay.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Mr. Klein. Tammy Ray.
Hi, Tammy.
Hi, I represent District 1. My question is, what experience do you have that is related to the work of the advisory board? And then the second part is, this could be professional or experience that you have from the community.
Mhm. So I have a lot of experience serving seniors. So most of my career is serving seniors. I started out in institutionally based care in nursing homes and retirement communities, hospital administration. From there, I did a stint at the state of Michigan as the senior deputy director in the Department of Health and Human Services and oversaw the AAA's area agencies on aging around the state of Michigan. So that's probably the most relevant experience, but just coupled with the fact that I bring in different perspectives from different care models, whether it be PACE or nursing home administration, assisted living, home care, home for the aged, adult foster care. And most of that's my professional experience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Richard, share what you've learned working with other people from different cultures.
So that was a interesting and great question, and I really had to give that one a lot of thought. And I summed it up this way, John. Everyone is unique, and you need to meet people where they're at. So I didn't, culture is a tough one because it's so broad. I know there's a lot of conversation about cultural competency right now. I like to really try to meet people where they're at, understand what their needs and perspectives are before moving forward with a relationship, if you will, whether that be in the community or somebody I work with, somebody we partner with or collaborate with. And that's how I'm going to sum that one up.
Thank you. Sorry, Chair, but I didn't use my.
Oh, Mr. Klein, we've already met, so I will continue on. What training or education have you received in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? How will you use what you have learned in your work with this advisory board?
So I've had a lot of training in this area. I think I'll start with the end, and it needs to be woven into all facets of what we do as a service provider, how we collaborate with our partners in the community, and making sure that those components are reflected in that work. And I've had training with the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, ERACE, with the state of Michigan. I was on the state's Disability Council. We got a lot of training on diversity, equity, inclusion, and access. Our organization recently reached out to an organization called Dialectics, and they're out of West Virginia, and we really wanted to bring in a fresh perspective to our organization because we felt like we were behind the curve when it came to diversity, equity, and inclusion, culture improvement and change. Our board wasn't reflective of that. Some of our staffing management wasn't reflective of diversity. It is a lot more now. But we're just starting the journey, I would say. We now have a diversity and inclusion statement, bylaws, a committee, but we're really just getting into surveying our staff to see for our organization how do we move forward as a group. I think in the community, it's very interesting when we're trying to align our organization with the Kalamazoo Community Foundation, Stryker Foundation, some other folks in the community who are elevating these concepts. And we need to make sure that we're able to align ourselves organizationally with what they're trying to create in the broader community. So it's work. I don't want to use the old adage that it's a journey, but it really is. So that's kind of where I'm at and kind of where our organization is at with DEI. I'm really passionate about access in that equation because I think that, I've been in this role with senior services, I'll call it Milestone Senior Services, for 4 years now. And when I got there, it was very clear that we were a best kept secret. And, if I ran into someone at the store and they said, "Hey, where do you work?" And I'd say Senior Services, and they'd kind of give you this look, and you'd run down the 23 odd, services you provide, but it wouldn't be until you get to Meals on Wheels that you see the light bulb go on and, oh, now I know, because that's the only thing they could relate to. And I think it's because of that strong national brand for Meals on Wheels. But in a very quick nutshell, if people don't know who we are and what we do and what we can offer, they can't benefit from that service. So that's something that we're taking very seriously. And that was part of the purpose of the rebrand, just to bring some traction to that access issue. So.
All right, Mr. Klein, our next question. What do you expect the advisory board or authority to give to the community? And how can you help the work of the advisory board?
So I think what the advisory board should give to the community is that platform for feedback. So I think that having, a diverse group around the table coming from different spots in the community, we can be that ear. We can help efficiently funnel that data or funnel those needs back into the council, into the AAA, so that they can, efficiently make decisions and leverage those dollars. Maybe we would help prioritize based on those needs we're seeing in the community, but to bring perspective into the county, into the AAA, that they might have to, use a lot of resources to chase down, where we can just serve it right up to them. No pun intended.
What are 3 things that a member of the advisory board should consider?
I think we should consider what is efficient, what is effective, that old adage. It never seems to get old. And those still seem to be the right questions to ask ourselves when we're trying to provide good services with a limited amount of dollars. I think, what are the greatest needs in the community? Where are those gaps? And how can we work to help close those gaps? And it really becomes a collaborative discussion, because not any one provider, person, agency can really do it all. We really have to work together to come up with that common vision. Every organization has the common vision. The community has its own vision, and we should really try to create some alignment with all those things if we can. So, but we can't do that in a vacuum. We have to work on that together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, us old guys need to be reminded every now and then. Thank you, Dale. Richard, what must this advisory board do in practice to be successful?
I one is use data. I think that is something we often need to be reminded of. I know I do in my current role. It's easy to get caught up in emotion and get caught up in your own opinions. And it really takes a discipline to kind of go back to the data and really help discern what that data is telling you. And sometimes what it tells you is not always what you want to hear. We may have certain processes in place that we love that the data tells us isn't working well for the folks in the community. So I think using that data, trying to stay as disciplined as we can, identify needs effectively. I'll use that word again. And I know that's a challenge. I know the AAA is going through a community needs assessment. We haven't personally done one at Milestone, but I think we could do some things. I know other organizations do, like Bronson. I think those bring different perspectives as those community needs assessments are defined. But I think that's something we struggle with as an organization, frankly, that we need to improve. And I think whether we do that as a sole organization or part of the community, I think both are yes answers to that question. And I think all ships rise because of it. I think we would all get better understanding of what the true needs are out in the community. But it's not just about identifying those needs. It's about where are the greatest needs, helping prioritize those needs. Where are those gaps? And then how do we work together to close those gaps?
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Richard, what are 3 things this advisory board should be aware of before making a decision?
Well, this was my favorite question because I deemed it a trick question. Because as an advisory council, we don't make decisions, I would say. We would make recommendations. So there's my snarky answer. But to answer that, I would say understanding the key advocacy issues, the community needs, what the AAA process and regulations are, because it's the world we live in, whether it's national, state, local rules and regulations. So we have to understand those if we're going to impact change and close those gaps. So we have to know what the AAA has to operate under, whatever standards those are, whatever grant language there is, whatever federal regulations there are. And we have to know what dollars are available. So those are just some basic kind of fundamental things I think that we would need to know to serve well on that committee or council, I should say.
All right, Mr. Klein, the next question is, how do you handle and resolve conflicts?
Really well. I listen first. I seek to understand. I try to find common ground. I, above all, stay respectful, and my memory always isn't that great. So personally, I take notes. And sometimes if things are really divisive or you're just coming from 2 different points of view, sometimes you just have to take a break and reapproach that. And that's part of taking the notes, being able to reflect on that, coming back to the table and seeing if you can get that conflict resolved.
Thank you.
I do that at work, but I don't do that at home, probably. I need to practice more of what I preach, perhaps. Yeah.
Okay, what is the greatest strength that you will bring to the advisory board?
I think my experience, Tammy, I've worked with seniors primarily in my career for a little over 35 years in a variety of settings. I have government regulatory knowledge, local, state, national perspectives with regard to advocacy. I've definitely got opinions on things that aren't working well. I understand different models of care and service. I have more to that, but I'll just leave it at that. So
Good answer.
I
Thank
think
you.
that's my biggest strength that I would bring, just a long-standing perspective, either a blessing or a curse, but
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Richard, do you have any questions for us?
I've got just a couple. Are there any bylaws or charter information that that would guide how the council operates?
I'm sure there is, and Don can provide that to
Okay.
you, or Kelly. Yeah, both of them, I'm sure, are very conversant with it. They've been involved for
Yeah.
a long time.
Yep.
Yeah,
For sure.
I'd be absolutely devastated if they didn't have it.
Okay.
Lindy's now wanting to say something. You're telling me I'm full of it, right? Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
No, I just happen to know with the advisory councils with the Health and Community Services Department, they do have their bylaws posted online. So if you go to their main page and then under the About section, Advisory Councils, then you'll see the bylaws there.
This is just a general question for everyone in the room, since I have this opportunity to ask. What do you see as the opportunities to meet growing needs of seniors in the county? And what, as a service provider, might we do better in the community? Couple questions there, just.
So I'll chime in just
Mhm.
really quickly. I think, we have an aging population and a shrinking one as well. And we have a desire for elders to remain in place and age in their homes. And so that's going to create additional pressures on the direct care workforce shortage. So that recruitment, retention, adequate pay and benefits for the direct care workers. I've worked in direct care space and managing that on the mental health side. I see that as a major challenge for
Yep.
senior services.
That's one of my biggest opinional rubs with the state right now is.
So, Mr. Klein, thank you so much
Okay.
for taking your time to interview with us today. Yes, please. Thank you.
Yes, I'll be happy to ask it of all candidates, but I certainly want to ask it of Richard. Do you have any issue in abstaining from some of the votes, since senior services or Milestone Senior Services obviously intimately involved
Yep.
with the AAA?
I have no qualms about abstaining from anything that might even remotely reflect a conflict. I've been on many boards and I've overseen many boards where there have been situations like that people just need to abstain from. And my presence is primarily just to, help lift up the AAA, support their work, be part of that data-driven process, community needs, and, how we can be a better provider in closing those gaps. So no problem.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Thank you, Commissioner Kistler. So the committee will deliberate, will make a determination. If you are offered the position, then you'll hear from administration and the liaisons with follow-ups to onboard you to the position.
I appreciate the consideration and the time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So committee, Commissioner Kistler.
Yes, I wasn't paying sufficient attention when you introduced the OSAC candidates. How many are we looking to fill? 2 spots, 3 spots?
So Mr. Klein is the only candidate for a sector position for nutrition. We do have a general sector position, which we can consider 2 other candidates in the future.
Okay.
But for the nutrition sector, he is our only candidate. It would be appropriate to entertain a motion at this time.
Can I make a motion that we put Richard on that slot right now? I attended my first OSAC meeting yesterday that I haven't attended probably in 5 years. COVID got in the way, and I think Mike Quinn was our lead person from the county commission for the 2 or 3 years up to that point. Excuse me. And I notice a real contrast. Oh, he's left the room. Yes, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll make a motion and get a second and we can have some
Without an
discussion.
attorney in the room. You're doing good, Jen.
I'm going to try. So we have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Okay, moved by Commissioner Gessler, supported by Commissioner DeLu to appoint Mr. Klein. And then as you were sharing some thoughts, Commissioner Gessler as the liaison for that board.
Yes, may I continue with those
Yes,
comments
please.
now that it's appropriate? We've had a second and everything. I didn't pay any attention until yesterday, and I thought, good grief, Bob Litke, who was the predecessor of the head guy of senior services, always had somebody under him sitting in the room at OSAC meetings, but never did anybody, as far as I remember, want to step forward and be a member of that board. They were always in the back row around the fringe. And Bob himself did not want to, or never chose to participate to that extent. I think this is fantastic that we've got the head honcho of one of the prime suppliers of assistance for seniors ready to sit in. And good Lord, when you look at his experience, it's incredible. You know, we got enough experience in that one candidate to spread about over 10. It's really exceptional. And I'm always pleased with the kinds of folks we get stepping forward, but this one's just almost, for OSAC anyway, it's in a league by itself. Now I'll shut up.
Agreed. Very strong candidate. Do we have any other comments for discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of appointment of Mr. Klein to Older Adult Services in the nutrition sector, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. All right, excellent. We're going to move now into our next interview, which I assume both are joining us online. Do we have both of the other applicants that we will be interviewing with us today, Dina?
Yes, actually, there's only one applicant for the South
I-
Central. Sorry.
No, I do understand. I'm just wondering if both Mr. Combs and Ms. Stewart are present online.
Miss Stewart is.
Good, thank you. All right, so I see Miss Bianca Stewart. So good afternoon, Bianca. I know you kind of can't see us very well. I don't know if the camera view can be changed for our applicants to see who's speaking to them.
I can
But good
see-
afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you just fine, and I am able to see everyone as it stands right now, Commissioner Strips.
Good, thank you so much.
We're all terribly good looking.
Speak for yourself, John. Okay, so Ms. Stewart is here. She actually has applied for two of the bodies that we have on our agenda today, both the Environmental Health Advisory Council and the South Central Michigan Planning Council. And so we can really tackle the interview for both of those bodies at the same time. Is that agreeable to you, Bianca?
Yes, absolutely.
Excellent. So we'll just be mindful when we get to questions that might want some specifics from each of those perspectives to just address both bodies, okay?
All right.
All right, so we'll start first. I'll just give an overview to the committee. The Environmental Health Advisory Council meets the second Wednesday of every other month of the year at the HCS building. This is an advocacy body and a sounding board for environmental issues across the community. And then we also have the South Central Planning Commission. This is a collaborative across, I believe it's 8 counties regionally. They meet the first Tuesday on a quarterly basis at 11:30 at rotating locations. And they address issues of land use that also impact a number of conditions. Commissioner Gessler.
Yes, I sat in on a few of those meetings recently, and I think they've changed the rotation scenario to meeting at Southwest Michigan first, because the people scattered around in the 8 counties find that an easy place to get to. And sometimes they had trouble with a quorum when they were out in one of the outlying 8 counties, and Southwest Michigan First was more than happy to lend their conference room. So I think that's where they're headed if they aren't already there.
Thank you for sharing that. Maybe administration could confirm. We can update our information available to applicants about where those meetings.
That would certainly make it
Wow.
easier for some Kalamazoo-based person to attend,
Yeah.
because when you got to go to the far reaches of Berrien County, that's a bit of a haul.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to bring us to our interview questions. So Bianca, good to see you and thank you for being here today. So this committee has been able to review both of the applications that you've put in, both for the Environmental Health Advisory Council and for South Central Planning. We have another interview that we would like to conduct today as well. So I encourage you to feel like you've answered the questions fully, but to be concise as well where you can. Okay, so you and I already know each other. I'm Commissioner Strabs representing District 2. Happy to see you here today. And we're just going to go around. We'll do the same questions you probably already heard in our first candidate if you were watching. So the first one is, could you tell me what you know about both of these two advisory boards or authority, and why are you interested in serving on each of them?
Yes, absolutely. And I'll start with the environmental health. So this advisory board can inform environmental justice policy through advocacy, and that's why I'm interested in the board. As a resident of Kalamazoo County, I wanna-
Bianca?
Yeah.
You're fine. Is there anything you can do to elevate the sound? Some of us are having a little bit of difficulty hearing her.
Dina, are you able to make any adjustments to the sound?
I did adjust the volume and will let me know if that works, if I need to turn it up more.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you, Bianca. Please continue.
No, that's absolutely all right. I do want to check. Can everyone hear me well?
That's
All
great.
right. So I'll just start right from the top with the environmental health. So this advisory board can inform environmental justice policy through advocacy, and that's why I'm interested. As a resident of Kalamazoo County, I want to make sure I can utilize all the resources I have as an individual, whether it be through community organizing or the climate crisis-centered organizations that I've worked with, to help inform a people-centered environmental justice policy within our community. Now, with the South Central Michigan Planning Council, this council covers a wide range of things, from economic health, improving transportation systems, promoting regional and cooperational planning, working with local entities. And I'm interested in being on this planning council because as a resident of 8 years of Kalamazoo County, I have personal experience in engaging with all of these systems, organizations, and community spaces. And I think it would be beneficial if I were on that planning council to bring that lived experience in.
Good. Thank you so much, Commissioner Ray.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Bianca. How are you?
I'm
I'm Tammy Ray. I represent District 1. My question is, what experience do you have that is related to the work of the advisory board? And this can be professional or experience that you have from the community.
All right. And again, I'm going to start with environmental health. So I have experience with working around and with the environment through organizing and professional work. But I actually want to start off with a personal experience of how I got into it. So it actually unfortunately starts with the Flint water crisis, because I was actually born in Flint and still had family in and around Flint at the time. And while I was at Western Michigan University, this is when this incident occurred. So I wanted to study, quite frankly, how all systems failed in that scenario. And so I studied systems change through human behavior in regards to politics to understand the dynamics and the legislation that occurred. And I did that through an independent study for my honors thesis. I took classes such as behavioral approaches to sustainability, and then also classes such as behavioral science perspectives and introduction to sustainability, which examine modern concepts of sustainability and core sustainability challenges within energy, water, and food systems. Now, after graduation, I expanded on that through organizing experiences. So, for example, I attended a movement school through the Michigan Environmental Justice Coalition to learn from experienced climate crisis organizers on a series of different topics, from power building and movement, using the race class narrative, and how that narrative model is essential into mobilizing community members around a common goal. I expanded my knowledge on environmental racial injustices. I currently organize with organizations such as Carbon Solutions LLC, Michigan Alliance for Justice and Climate, and then Black Girl Environmentalist, in order to bring funding, opportunities, and awareness to climate crisis solutions for communities. So, for example, I'm continuing to organize with Carbon Solutions to raise awareness about the Justice 40 grants that are available through federal funding in our community. Now, as for the South Central Michigan Planning Council, again, I have experience through living through the community. So, for example, for the last 6 years, I've had to rely on Kalamazoo public transportation, which suits me well to know the needs of a college student and a postgraduate working class resident, to know what type of transportation is needed to keep a full-time job. Also, I've worked with a plethora of organizations ranging from our universities and organizations throughout Kalamazoo to know the support that the overall community needs, especially to work in a collaborative manner. And that is all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excuse me. Bianca, I'm John Gisler. I represent District 6, which is kind of the east side of the lower part of Kalamazoo County, for a better way to describe it. I haven't come up with it yet. Share what you have learned from working with people from different cultures.
All right. So first thing that I've learned that when working with different cultures is that I have to be respectful, mindful, and then always putting myself in a position to be educated by a diverse collective of people that I'm working with. I've learned that simply knowing someone else's culture through education and or media is never fully enough to understand in a community. So when I do community organizing work or any work with different cultures and communities, I make sure that I'm attentive to my own behavior and the privileges that I'm bringing into the room to ensure that I do not cause harm to other people.
Thank you.
Hello, Bianca. Dale DeLu, District 9, which represents Ashtamo and Alamo Townships. What training or education have you received in diversity, equity, inclusion, and justice? How will you use what you have learned in your work with this advisory board?
All right, thank you for that question. So while I was at YWCA Kalamazoo, I received training internally about diversity, equity, inclusion, and injustice because it was essential to my role as the community organizer and training for survivors' rights. And in that position, I had to facilitate YWCA racial equity workshops, which actually encompassed a different amount of systems of oppression. And so it was either 4 or 7 hours that I had to talk about the history of inequity within the United States and its current day effects on all of our systems and how it relates to the workplace for nonprofits, schools, and other institutions. And I will use what I've learned from that job position to make sure that I'm advocating for Kalamazoo community through an anti-oppression lens.
All right, Bianca, the next one is, what do you expect the advisory board or authority to give to the community? And how can you help the work of that advisory board? And you can address both of them if you'd like there.
Yep. I will answer this in one go. And so one, I expect the advisory board to give nothing short of its best. And what I mean by that is to work within a reasonable time frame in response to issues and projects, and to be transparent and communicative with the community. And I think I can help the advisory board by being a strong advocate for marginalized communities and bring valuable different perspectives to the board and or council.
Thank you.
What are 3 things that a member of the advisory board should consider?
Right, so 3 things that I think that the advisory board should consider, and this answer is actually going to be pretty similar to question 8 because I thought they were similar, is 1, making sure that they think that proper representation is in the room when any issue and or project is being discussed. And does the member have enough adequate information to make an informed decision? And does the member fully understand the impact of their decision to advocate for and or against something?
Thank you.
Bianca, what must this advisory board do or practice to be successful?
So what I think that the board and or advisory council needs to be successful is to practice transparency, open and accessible communication, and good data collection. First, transparency is needed to build proper trust and support between community members in order for any advocacy work or planning to be successful. Second, the communication needs to be open and accessible for community members, for the board to be effective in advocating for the community. And then third, good data collection on information is needed to make informed decisions, and making informed decisions is just essential to being successful.
Thank you.
Bianca, what are 3 things the advisory board should be aware of before making decisions, even if they are just advisory decisions?
So again, do they think that proper representation is in the room for the issue or the project being discussed? Does the member have adequate information or the opportunity to acquire adequate information to make an informed decision? And again, does the member fully understand the impact of their decision to either be for or against something in their advocacy work?
Right. Thank you, Bianca. The next one is how do you handle and resolve conflicts?
So I resolve conflicts by first checking myself. I think one of the best ways to mitigate conflict is to assess one's own behavior. And then after that assessment, if I feel I still need to engage in constructive conflict, and by constructive conflict, I mean engaging in a respectful manner while still attempting to make my point, I will do so in a manner that is to educate the person that I am in constructive conflict with.
Thank you.
Bianca, what is the greatest strength that you will bring to the advisory board?
I think the greatest strength that I have for the advisory board is my organizing skills and my community connections. I think the connections that I have with statewide organizations and local organizations, along with the ability and skills to expand those connections, are beneficial to the board and council.
Thank you.
Bianca, do you have any questions for us?
No, I do not have any questions for you all. And thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to interview for these advisory board positions.
Thank you.
Bianca, thank you so much for taking the time to be with our committee today. We will deliberate after a review of other applicants, and you'll hear from administration once a determination is made if you're offered a position on the advisory bodies. Thank you again so much.
All right. Thank you
Have a
so
great
much.
day.
Have a great day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Commissioner Gessler.
May I ask Bianca one additional question? And it has nothing to do with abstaining.
Oh, good. I
because-
thought she had left
No,
us. and
I know we're supposed to
apologize.
ask the same questions of all the candidates, but that
Yes.
one doesn't make any sense for her. Bianca, if you were to be selected for either or of these positions on these boards, is there one that you have a particular preference for? And I'm not saying that it's a one size fits all kind of thing. We have multiple people that serve on multiple boards and they do wonderful jobs for us. But is there one that's kind of, really your favorite?
Yes, it is the Environmental Health Advisory Board. I know that you guys have a wonderful pool of applicants. So if there's a tough call, please, I would love to be on the Environmental Health Board.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you again so much. Sorry, Commissioner Gissler, trying to cut you off too quickly. Yes. So just to circle us back to the Environmental Health Advisory Council, it's the first on our agenda. We do have 2 vacancies available on that body, and they're each identified as a particular sector. One is a township representative. The applicant that we had for that has withdrawn their application. We may want to have some further discussion on that. The other sector is the citizen at large, which Bianca would be appropriate for. She is our only applicant for that citizen at large position. It would be appropriate to entertain a motion at this time.
I'd love to make the motion for Ms. Stewart to serve as the citizen at large on the Environmental Health Advisory Board.
Second.
Good. Motion made by Commissioner Duluth, seconded by Commissioner Gissler. Is there any discussion? All right, seeing none, all those in favor of Bianca Stewart's appointment as citizen at large to Environmental Health Advisory Council, say aye. Aye. And any opposed? Excellent. That motion carries. Congratulations to Ms. Stewart. So the other body that she applied for is the South Central Planning Council. We have another applicant for that position, Mr. David Combs. Is he scheduled to be with us? It didn't sound like he was present online.
No, he is not interviewing today.
Okay, thank you. So to clarify, for the South Central Planning Commission, that posting is closed. We do have 2 vacancies for that body. There are no specific sector requirements for those applicants. The 2 applicants are Bianca Stewart and David Combs. David will be interviewed at a future time, but Ms. Stewart has been interviewed for one of those 2 vacancies. It would be appropriate, I think, to entertain a motion.
Can I have some question first? I guess we should have asked her. Is she willing to serve on both if appointed, or did she just want one?
She's applied for both positions.
do
Yeah.
both at
So
the-
she-
okay. then I'll make the motion that she be appointed to the Southwest Michigan Planning Council Board to fill one of the vacancies.
I'll support.
All right, motion made by Commissioner DeLu, seconded by Vice Chair Ray for Bianca Stewart to be appointed to the South Central Planning Commission. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Say aye. Aye, and any opposed? Excellent, motion carries. Again, congratulations to Ms. Stewart, her appointment to the South Central Planning Council, and we will review that additional applicant at a future time. Okay. Yeah, here we are now at 12:46, and it brings us, I got to get my agenda to come back up again. To review of applications. So we received a number of applications for the Kalamazoo County Transportation Authority, the KCTA. These will require a full board interview, so we won't be interviewing these applicants. But what we can do here is take a look at the applicants in front of us and decide which of those we recommend move forward for those full interviews. So there are 4 vacancies which are in need of filling, and we have 5 applicants. 2 of the applicants are incumbents currently, and 3 of them are new applicants. And I'll just share one of the things that did stick out to me as maybe a potential way for more folks to participate is that Curtis Ardema is currently appointed by the city of Kalamazoo and serving on the CCTA, and those 2 bodies meet at the same time. And so potentially, if he's not reappointed to the KCTA, he still attends those meetings and provides input as a representative of the city of Kalamazoo. So that's just something I wanted to just elevate. It looks like he's, committed and qualified, but he will be kind of participating regardless. So we might want to take that into consideration as we look at the applicants. We have any other thoughts from committee? Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. At the last meeting we held of this August group, I think, came to the conclusion that we would not ask incumbents to interview again if that's the way it looked. Are we still following that kind of unwritten rule of thumb?
So we have sort of discretion there. It is within our purview that we could choose not to have an incumbent re-interview. We can't just move them. We would recommend their appointment to the full board. Folks who are incumbents, we can ask to re-interview if we want. When we're considering, and I think generally it's been approached that for me, I know that incumbency provides experience, but it also, we want to ensure that there are other perspectives considered. So, we have some discretion. We could recommend interviewing some candidates, not interviewing incumbents. We could ask them all to be interviewed so that we can consider them. It's sort of up to us there, John.
Well, if we can do anything to favor the 2 incumbents, I'm all for it. I've sat in with that August joint group, KCTA and CCTA, for, I don't know, well, since we were able to meet in the flesh after COVID, and I met with them frequently before. I don't think I was ever the official, maybe I was at one point the official county liaison, but I have a big history with transit going back to 2006, before I even became a commissioner. And I like what I see when they meet. They've got good leadership and they've got very able people serving on that board. And Mr. Brown and Mr. Ardema are both among the ones I consider real keepers. Thank you.
Commissioner Gissler, just back to that thought, if Mr. Ardema would be participating regardless of whether we appoint him through one of the spots we have in the KCTA for the county, if he'll still be there and participating, should we maybe consider another applicant to, we just bring another voice into the room?
Certainly, I still get confused which is CCTA and which is KCTA, even though I've been sitting in with them forever, it seems. So as long as Kurt is still there, they generally, well, I take it back, they do vote separately on some issues, CCTA versus KCTA, but I would like to see him remain there in whatever capacity it seems appropriate for us. He's first rate, and so is Mr. Brown. And he's not looking at a switch over. He's looking for a reappointment to where he is now.
He's doing both. So he does the CCTA for the city and is an incumbent for the KCTA for us.
That's, I always mess his first name up.
Curtis.
Mr. Brown, no, I'm
That's
talking about.
Curtis
Mr.
Ardma.
Yeah, I understand that, but what about Mr. Brown? Is he?
Tafari, as far as I know, is just appointed to the KCTA for us. He's currently an incumbent, just wishes to continue that.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Dillon?
Well, I'm obviously Mr. Ardeman knows he's on the CCTA. Why would he apply for both? Is there a reason? I mean, I hate to deny him.
I think just gleaning from what Commissioner Gissler shared, I mean, there are some differences in actions that the two bodies take, but he certainly would still be in the room as part of the discussion to help drive decision-making. So, maybe that's why a broad interest in transportation, I would glean.
And Mr. Brown is an incumbent?
That's correct. Vice Chair Ray, do you have any thoughts on what you'd like to see here?
I unfortunately do not have my laptop and I'm not prepared. I don't have any printouts. So I am going to just agree with whatever Commissioner Gissler says because he has a wealth of knowledge and information with this committee. Not today. I actually have to go back to work, so I'm gonna leave because I don't really have anything to add to the discussion because I'm not prepared. So I do apologize to you all and the applicants.
Well, we appreciate you being here, Vice Chair Ray, and thank you for coming. Commissioner Gissler, go ahead.
Yes, I want to put ditto marks under what you just said about Tammy. There are some of us that don't work for a living anymore, and we appreciate those that do showing up for things like this in midday. Thank you, Tammy.
All right, so what we want to do is narrow down. So we have several options in front of us. We can choose to reappoint, recommend reappointment of both of the incumbents without interview. We could recommend the reappointment of one of the incumbents, Mr. Brown, without interview, and not Mr. Ardma, since he already will continue to participate. Or we could choose to choose to interview them in either circumstance. And then we have 3 new applicants, and we can offer each of them the opportunity to interview or choose to pare down the pool with which we'll recommend to the board. So, John, I mean, you have a lot of experience with that body. I mean, I'm open to your recommendation. What would you like to see happen here?
We would have 3 people competing for what, 2 openings if we were to give the incumbents both a pass?
That is correct.
I think that would work out fine. The last time we filled one of those spots, the guy's name was Rob, I want to say Hallman, Halman, something like that. He was a constituent of mine from Pavilion. I should know the guy. And I've had a chance to see him in action at that board meeting. I think he started the first of the year, so it's probably only been twice now. And he's really effective. He's an ex-post office employee, and he brought all kinds of credentials to the table that he doesn't hesitate to offer that experience in some fashion. And so we've got a good history of putting good people on this board, and I'd sure hate to see it change. So I will make a motion that we add the 2, or that we approve and appoint the 2 incumbents, and then let the remaining 3 compete for the 2 spots that remain. Thank you.
Motion made by Commissioner Gissler and supported by Commissioner DeLu to recommend the reappointment of Curtis Ardma and Tafari Brown as incumbents to the KCTA and to offer Gary Sigmund, Diane Anderson, and Isaiah Williams the opportunity for a full board interview for the remaining 2 vacancies. Administration, anything else on that? Is that all solidified for you? Okay. All right. Thank you for that, gentlemen. So it brings us to the last, is any other items? So just one thing I wanted to address, I noted that for the older adult services, we had, no, I'm saying that wrong. My apologies. The Environmental Health Advisory Council, we have one sector, which is the township representative. And we had the discussion last time about Don, I'm going to get his last name right. Ulich. And it looks like we asked for him to come back for an interview. And I'm not sure if that was the intention of this committee. We were just, there was some confusion about if he was like a village representative or township representative.
Yeah, he's the supervisor of Schoolcraft Township, Don
Yes.
Walsh, yeah.
But thank you, Don Walsh. But it looks as though being asked to interview distressed him a little bit because he has experience. And that resulted in him withdrawing his application. So I don't know him personally, Commissioner Gisler. Do we want to reconsider offering him appointment without interview, or if he's sort of, flustered and feels done, that we just leave the posting is up now, so it's got to remain up, but do you have any thoughts, Commissioner Gisler?
And that would be to fill that township role on the Environmental Health Advisory Council. Gee, that's a shame. I think he'd be good at that. He obviously thinks he would be too. But he doesn't want to talk to us about it, huh? Boy. That's a tough one. He's a friend. I know him well. He'd be great. But, if this is first pass at interviewing for one of these advisory board positions, I guess I'm surprised that he's digging his heels in and saying, appoint me based on what I can tell you in a resume. And
Well, and
Other than
to
that,
clarify,
forget
Commissioner Gisler, he's a current incumbent. So incumbents don't always have to interview, and I don't know it was our intent to ask him to do that.
is he an incumbent on the EHAC? Oh, I didn't know that. I would definitely vote to put him back on then. We are doing, I think, right by incumbents that have a good attendance record and participate appropriately. And I would certainly, if Don's already on that committee, I would encourage him to, or encourage us not to require another interview.
So administration, Deputy Administrator, we have the posting that is open, so it will remain that way until the end of February. But please go ahead.
So Don Ulsh actually is not
Oh.
an incumbent.
My apologies.
We'll see here. Okay, I'll try again. Okay, there we go. We will be getting the vendor in here to correct our sounds, just so y'all know. So no, he is currently not an incumbent, but he has been a part of other committees, I believe is what he was indicating in his email.
Thank you for clarifying that, and my apologies. It is our bylaws then that he is required for interview for an initial appointment. So being it's his preference not to interview, then I guess we will not endeavor in that work with him on EHAC, unfortunately. Go ahead, Commissioner Gisler.
Yes, did we leave a vote off on the transit incumbents? We had a motion and a second, but I don't think we actually voted.
Oh, I think.
I
you
wanna make
might
sure
be
we're legit here.
right. I think that you might be right. Thank you very much, Commissioner Gisler. So I'll back us up. We had a motion and the second, as previously stated. So all those in favor of our reappointment and recommendations for interviews, please say aye. Aye. And any opposed? And with that, motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner Gisler. Good catch. Okay. Yes, it takes a village. to do that, right?
Angelina is a hell of a Robert's Rules of Order influence on me.
Yes, We're going to be like a fine oiled machine here at some point. Do we have any other committee members with anything else that they'd like to address? Commissioner DeLu?
Just have a question, being the new person. So when the entire commission interviews these folks, does that happen at a special meeting or does it happen at the regular commission meeting?
It usually occurs at a committee of the whole meeting, so at our 4 o'clock sessions usually. Depending on the size of the agenda in each, I think we've sometimes had interviews that occurred at a 7 o'clock session, but typically it's at the cow. And we'll use the same set of interview questions and we'll just go around as we did. The board chair would lead that process when they come before the whole board.
And it appears the candidates get these questions before they. Okay.
That's correct.
And we
Chair
also, for your benefit, Dale, usually pull a table up, and I'm assuming that's how we're going to do it, where the air purifier is. And it's like, they must feel a little bit like they're getting the 3rd degree, because here's this group of 9 now, all addressing the questions that are on the sheet. And they've had a chance to look over, but then all of a sudden, you're in the middle of this whole thing and being asked these very questions. And it's a little intimidating. In fact, we had somebody, I don't remember what the occasion was, but didn't we have a discussion about some folks that would not respond well in that kind of an environment if they thought it was like the 3rd degree or something? And I don't know what we decided on that. Did we say, well, too bad, you're going to come in and talk anyway? Or did
No,
we work our way around it?
I think what you might be referring to are representatives on the ISK Integrated Services Board.
Possibly,
And the
yeah.
consumer sector. So those are people who are recipients of mental health services. And so they have the option, that rest of that body interviews with the whole board. But those folks who are actually direct recipients have a choice. They could say, well, yeah, I want to do that. I want to be in that public space and talk with everybody. Or they might say, boy, that feels like a lot of pressure. I'd rather meet with a smaller group. So they have the option.
And that would be, I was not on this group last time around. And that was, then you're saying they have the option in this year of interviewing in front of 9 or interviewing in front of these 4. Oh,
And last term, we reappointed, or we made new appointments to the consumer sector. We offered them the option and they chose to meet the full board. So they didn't want to take the.
good for them.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. Deputy Director or Deputy Administrator, so sorry.
That's okay. I did just want to point out, so with the South Central Michigan Planning Council, I'll move forward with Bianca today. We do have, we're trying to get David Combs, who's the other applicant that y'all selected for interview, hopefully at the next future meeting. But I did just want to point out some information in the bar that an incumbent, Vince Carhally, I know I mispronounced that. Anyway, he currently was serving on this committee and his term expired 12/31/22. He didn't realize he needed to reapply and is interested in continuing his service. So I'm trying to get some direction from this committee on how y'all would like us to proceed with that. Technically speaking, it's not that committee position isn't posted right now. That posting already came down because we had 2 applicants, we had 2 openings. So we're trying to figure out how y'all would maybe want to move forward with him.
So, thank you for that information, and I missed it in the bar, so my apologies. Mr. Callahay is the current chair of the Metropolitan County Planning Council. And I know I do, yes, he's a colorful character. But interested in service, Mr. Combs, the other applicant, I'm forgetting what body he was previously appointed to, but he recently applied for another advisory board, and he's also a very, very qualified individual. We've already moved and solidified Bianca through our vote. So I don't know what's the flavor of the committee, what we would like to see done with with Vince's application. Do we want to bring him forward, or he missed it? We have another qualified applicant. We're going to move ahead with that. What would we What would we prefer to do?
Did we look at David Holmes previously at our last meeting? That name sounds familiar. What was it? Yeah.
He's on the public works.
Well, I hate to see us not keep Vince around because the County Planning Commission is where you know him from. It's a, what did you call him? Colorful? Yeah, well, I'll tell you, it stretches, in my estimation, it stretches his colorfulness to sit on this other committee and serve as the chair. That's the one that Lee Adams is like the staff member that sits in with that Central County Planning Commission. I'd hate to give up Vince there. He'll probably be the chair again if he is reappointed. But I hate to see us, limit David Combs. Is he I know this is illegal to ask, but is he a young person that may come back for more, or is he an older guy, or?
Okay. So I think irrespective of his age, I think he is somebody with new interest in public service, somebody who's not been serving on committees for years and years. So, and I think he's been appointed to 2 other bodies at this point, because we considered him last time, and he'd previously been appointed for something else last term. And I'm just not.
Yeah, I was trying to look
recalling.
through my notes. I don't know if Dina, if you're able to weigh in. And this is regarding if we've interviewed or already appointed David Combs to a committee.
He is appointed to the Board of Public Works. I do know that, and I was looking to see if he was on another board, but I am not quite there yet.
Maybe that was the only one. Is that you think so too, Clerk? I will say that after the interview that was previously conducted with the committee last year with Mr. Combs, as we were seeking people to fill the vacancies, his credentials, I reached out to him directly and I encouraged him to apply for South Central Planning because his educational background related directly to like broad land use issues. So with that being what it is. One, I guess, question for administration with Mr. Callahay being unaware that his term had ended or that a reapplication was required. What can we do to, because this has come up a couple of times with incumbents that seem unaware that they need to reapply. Is there something that we can be doing in our communication to staff liaisons to broaden that process to support incumbents? Administration?
Yes, thank you for asking that. So it is on the a person to know kind of their term, their appointments, as well as staff liaisons. We are looking at today, we actually, right before this meeting, we had a staff liaison training for kind of what their roles and responsibilities are, especially in conjunction with the clerk's office. And so we can look at how we're communicating with our staff liaisons. We're going to be sending out another communication to them as a follow-up from the training that we did today. So we can reiterate some of this language to them. I don't know if Dina, if you have anything else that you would like to add in, but I think that is an area for sure that we can encourage staff liaisons to be aware of and to remind their committee members that have terms expiring. Yes.
Good, thank you for that, because many of them end at the end of the year, and so sort of an appropriate discussion. Commissioner Gissler.
Thank you, Chair. Is it irrevocable now that we've named Bianca to both the positions? Could we undo that? Because we didn't know that Vince was, going to reapply after the fact. And she indicated, and I'm so glad I asked the question, if you had to go one way or the other, which would it be? And it seemed to me that she was passionate about environmental health and less so about the Planning Commission, what is it, Central Michigan Planning Commission. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. And I would be happy to introduce a motion that we undo what we've already done earlier in this meeting to make room for Vince to be reappointed.
Thank you, Commissioner Gessler. Potentially, maybe that's something that we can take up at our next committee meeting. I think it requires reference to bylaws because it's been moved, seconded, and voted. She's appointed. So it would be technically a removal from appointment. And we need to look at the conditions required for that. Administration, please.
What we could do is we're looking at that, normally when y'all make an appointment, then at the next board meeting is where you see that coming forward. If we could hold until y'all have decided on the second vacancy as well and who's going to be in that position, which provides a little bit of time as far as, researching this question, as well as being able to interview David Combs as well. So I believe that would be okay, that we don't put this on the 2/21 meeting to bring to the board for appointment, and we can hold until we have maybe that interview with Mr. Combs.
Yeah, thank you. Point well taken. Because we don't actually make the appointment here, we're making a recommendation. So I think that seems in order. And potentially then if circumstances change for either of the other candidates, hopefully Mr. Combs will engage in that future interview with us and we can have further discussion then. Commissioner Gessler.
I wholeheartedly support delaying things on this particular board. And it may give us a chance to find out if our memory is correct, that David Combs is now appointed for 1 or possibly 2. And that may influence my advice anyway to the full board. Thank you.
All right, we have any other points of discussion? Our next meeting would be the Thursday after our next board session, whatever date that is. Commissioner Gessler.
I just want to compliment you, Jen, on running a great meeting. Thank you.
I'm going to do my best, but I appreciate that, especially being a little groggy and under the weather. With no matters further before us, we are adjourned. Thank you.